A love letter for the arts will be coming soon. Hosted by Dominic King, this is a love letter for the arts.
Hello and a very warm welcome this Saturday afternoon to a love letter for the arts. I'm delighted that you've come along for the 4th edition of this just amazing opportunity for us to meet people from the creative world here in Kent and elsewhere. And the whole point of this is that you get a chance as well to have your say on what the arts mean to you. That's so important to me. Let's start off then with introducing who our guests are by looking at some of their work. Stephen Elder and Balvinder Sopal, hello.
Hello.
I know, as actors, that's probably one of the worst things I could possibly do there, to show you some of your work.
I look so grumpy in most of those photos.
Welcome. Good to have you both with us. How are you? Hi, Stephen.
Hello. Hiya.
And Bal, always lovely. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having us on. This is exciting.
Well, here we are then on our live stream together. And I must say, first of all, and I know I probably say this every time I do one of these chats, but this is really true. Both Bal and Stephen are great friends of mine, and they're so supportive of what I do in the arts. So thank you, first of all, and get that out of the way to both of you for the incredible stuff you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Now, let's start off then with, I guess, a sense, Bal, of how it all started for you in terms of your career as an actor.
Yeah, this is a really funny question, because I always get asked it and I always have this thing prepared. And then I just thought about this today, and I think it's always been there. And without me knowing that I've wanted to get into acting, I've always wanted to just tell stories, I think. And I remember as a child, I would always want to sort of reenact famous Bollywood scenes with my cousins and my sister.
Yeah.
And then I sort of decided I wanted to pursue a career in it, and of course that's not the done thing. And so my family were like, why don't you try sort of something that's a bit more academic? And I thought, okay, well, why don't I do a degree, or why don't I do my A-levels in performing arts and then move on to doing a degree? And they were like, no, why don't you do something a bit more substantial? Like you can get your A-levels and you can do a degree, but why don't you try something like business or law, or and I thought, oh God, here we go. And I never parked it. I think I always thought I would go back to it somehow. And I never got on an A-level arts course. I never got to do that. So I did do business GNVQ. And then when I can't do this at university, she's going to kill me. And so applied to do a theatre studies degree with media studies, because I thought, well, maybe if the theatre studies doesn't work out, I've got journalism to fall back on, and that's, or something media related.
Yeah.
And then and so then that happened, and then I just started volunteering with a theatre company up in Huddersfield, which is where I did my degree, and I just thought, yeah, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, telling stories, giving voice to the people who don't get a chance to tell their stories. So yeah.
That seems, I mean, you were nodding away there, Stephen, some resonance for you about that kind of, certainly the storytelling aspect.
I just think we're all born with it. I think it's an instinct. I think from, you see kids playing and living through their imagination and running around and being superheroes and not worrying about, whether the audience are getting it or not, or whether they're being truthful or not, but just enjoying it. And I don't know, I just think that there's a moment, or there's a point, I guess, where most of us stop doing that, where that instinct is taken over by something else. But I think basically what I'm trying to say is that I think with actors that for some reason, for whatever reason, we hold on to that instinct of play acting and playing and living through the imagination. And not just actors, I mean, in a different way, writers and artists and musicians, they all keep on playing. But it's an instinct. So I think it, in many ways, it's what fascinates me is, when does it stop in a lot of people, and why does it stop?
I think that's what's been really interesting, actually, about hearing over the last number of weeks from different people in the arts on this live stream, because everyone has their ultimate goal and that passion and that drive, but it comes from a sense of, you said the word storytelling, and sometimes it's overused, but it's almost wanting to just be able to express yourself, and at the same time, Bal, you said it, I think, wanting to tell other people's stories, but also tell stories that are not always being told or always being seen to be told.
I think it's about connection as well, because when you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes, you tend to understand where they're coming from, and the struggles, or not completely, but there's a sort of sense of empathy and an understanding with the other, as it were. And there's a lot of othering going on at the moment. And I think, sort of stepping into somebody else's story just allows you to know a little bit more about yourself and how you can make the world a better place and how you connect with it all. And just, sort of evolves you as a human being, I think. And so for me, the connections are really important.
Did you both know, though, that, from an early age, that acting was your thing, that sense of drama was something you both wanted to do? Stephen?
I think I just wanted to more or less safely explore other people's circumstances of life, and it enables. It's the great gift of being an actor is, for me, is that you can step into these people's shoes and explore these lives in a safe way, because you're doing it through the imagination. And and it's curiosity, really. It's allowing your curiosity to run with you, and to look at those other lives and those other situations that may be lovely or maybe quite dark, that as I say, in a safe way, you can play with. There's an instinct to do that, I think. Where that comes from, I don't know. I mean, whether it comes from a desire when I was a kid to sort of break out of the life I was living in, and the imagination was a route towards doing. Not that I had a fine childhood, but it was constrained by its own circumstances. And so there must have been a desire to break out of that and experience other circumstances. Why? I don't know.
And Bal, you said about that kind of, you loved watching those Bollywood movies. And I know recently on my program, we talked with you and your sis about, that whole experience and what that was like. And it really had a profound effect on you. But equally, you were also seeing what was happening around you with the family in Gillingham and the culture that was emerging around that.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because, it sort of telling stories allows you to understand a little bit about who you are. And I think it's a really, it's a safe way to explore, sort of like Stephen has said, your own identity. And we did grow up with Bollywood movies and, Indian serial dramas on all the time. And I always thought, God, I'd love to step into that sort of world. And I'd love to wear the glamorous outfits and do the singing and the dancing. But then, of course, I was British. And that wasn't, that sort of didn't kind of mix together. And I thought, oh, hold on a minute. How do I get to be that and that at the same time? And I think then I was, introduced to musicals, and I'm like, oh my God, there's British and American musicals. And basically Bollywood is just an Indian musical. Yeah. So it does, the art form transfers, and you just go, well, I can tell an Asian story in a musical way, or vice versa, and that's the thing, is that it allowed you to be anything you wanted to be, and all forms and mediums and ways of storytelling exist, and we create that world, and what a wonderful world to live in,
And you discover aspects of yourself through doing that, and new parts, new aspects of your own personality through that, which is joyous, I think.
I learned I couldn't sing.
Is that right, Bal?
So I never attempted. So I never did it. I never then went and did musicals. And actually, funnily enough, although musicals was my way into it, I was like, this is I'm never going to become an actor, because all I'm now seeing, because when I was at uni, it was all musicals, and I thought, I can't sing for toffee. And I thought maybe I'll go and take some singing lessons, but I didn't. And then then I realized that there was so much more to it. So, yeah.
Have you ever had to sing, Stephen?
Sorry.
What's that?
Have you ever had to sing?
I've avoided it as much as possible. A couple of times, a couple of notes. I'm quite good at miming and being carried by the rest of the company.
I think
perfect for Bollywood.
Yeah. I think we've all been at a church service or someone's funeral, or maybe in the disco at a wedding, where we've all done that miming thing. We seem to all be able to get away with it. At least someone is singing. At least someone in the crowd is singing. If you're just joining us, welcome along to the live stream here, A Love Letter for the Arts, and I'm absolutely delighted that Balvinder Sopal and Stephen Elder are with me. For them both, the period, as many people in the arts, has been a bit of a strange one of lockdown, and what that's been like over the last number of months. Bal, was it weird for you, because EastEnders was obviously on hold? You'd relatively gone into EastEnders not that long before lockdown had begun, and then that role of Suki Panesar on EastEnders, like all the other cast members, is suddenly put on hold. What's that like in your world?
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? Because I don't think we expected it to go on for as long as it did. And also it felt a little bit surreal. It was like, all right, well, there's this thing happening around the world. It'll be over soon, and we'll be able to get back to normal life. And of course, normal life for me had also just changed, because I've done TV before, but to actually embody a regular character was something very new for me. So normal in my head was was not normal at all. And I remember, you know, sort of we were talking as cast members going, are you going to go back in, like, you know, because they haven't made it official yet, what do you think to do? And so we were having these discussions, and then literally they just went, that's it. It was a week. I think I had a couple of scenes to do, and they went, right, we're stopping, nobody's coming in, and that's that. And I just thought, oh God, does that mean like they might kill off all these new characters that they've brought in, and does that mean I'm never going to work in TV again? And then and what does that mean for theatre? What does that mean for me as a person in the creative world? Can I still do what I enjoy doing? You know, there was all these questions, and then you just sort of go, well, everybody in a way was in the same boat, and you just sort of had to take a step back. And I just thought, it's fine, you know, we can. And what was wonderful is that BBC EastEnders were in touch with us all the time to tell us what was happening, and when potentially we might be coming back, or, you know, there was a lot of care. We did have Carolyn, who is like our company, or she's our company manager, who would be calling us and just saying, you know, are you all right? Just making sure our mental health was all right, and that we were keeping busy doing other things, connecting with family as much as you could. And I just found solace in reading, I guess. And that was my lockdown. I just read lots of stuff and watched the news, but then sort of even the daily briefings were a waste of time, weren't they? And you're just like, they don't know what they're talking about. So I just went, right, I'll just do some gardening then, and then put my energies into that. And I think, you know, with things like this, you find other ways to be creative and connect. And so reading and sitting with my Jasmine became, you know, being able to speak to my Jasmine and journal. I used to journal a lot, you know, and just put my thoughts down. Again, you know, so sort of being allowed to express your feelings and your thoughts, and then reading them back was quite comforting. So yeah, that's
the thing, though, isn't it? You know, it was so different for everyone about what they did, whether people were able and still are, because, you know, this isn't over, in terms of how people have reacted to in their own world. I mean, I've got a brother who's a photographer, and, you know, everything just stopped. All the weddings weren't happening and all the rest. You know, it's in the creative fields, people then became very creative, I thought, which I thought was really interesting to see what we had online. Stephen, for you, what was happening in your world? Because the film sets, presumably there was some stuff slated before lockdown and then didn't happen because of lockdown.
Absolutely, yeah, it went on hold, and to a large extent, a lot of those things are still on hold. I think things are gradually waking up a little bit now. God, that was nice. It just seems like so long ago. Strangely, the actual lockdown part of this. I grew a really bad beard, terrible beard. Shan't do that again.
So did I.
So did I.
Very good. It's a very good thick beard. I meant to say that off air, but I've said it on air.
Well, I'm very pleased you've now made a recompense on that. So work-wise, you know, had it all at that point dried up? I mean, what did you do?
Well, I convinced myself that I'm shocked that I've actually managed to work quite recently, but I convinced myself that I wouldn't work until at least 2021. And in some respects, and I'm lucky that that's not the case, but in some respects, that was quite a useful thing to do, because that created a mindset where I could calm down a bit and accept the situation. But look, I mean, I've been lucky throughout this whole period. My wife and I have been lucky, health-wise and professionally. There are so many people out there that haven't been and that have been lonely through the lockdown. And so, you know, we've been very, very lucky. I read a lot. Still in shock, as I say, that I managed to do some work during this period, but obviously that wasn't in the lockdown. That was as things were beginning to ease, and as EastEnders was coming back, for example, and other productions were coming back. But the lockdown itself, I read, I ran, I shaved off the beard eventually, and it's just really important to say, to not deny what's happening and what was happening, to say to yourself, right, this is the situation, this is what's really going on now, and this is the likely consequence of it. And the consequence for me was really an acceptance that I probably wouldn't be working for a long time.
I think that's really important, actually, the acceptance. I think that's been really tough for a lot of people to try and get their heads around. Okay, so what do we do in this period? Because people are used to just, running around everywhere. I mean, for you guys, I know that, I get you to come on my show, but it is also based on what you're doing that week, where you're heading to, what auditions, when you've been going out to do those, what sets you've been heading to, what planes you've been getting on. I mean, all the usual things that just then stop. And a very strange reality started to come in. And I think this is about film and television on this live stream today. And those two worlds did something very strange, which was their studio doors closed. Yeah. And that's really odd in our lifetime for that to happen. People just couldn't believe that, after all those years, something like EastEnders, which had this ongoing run, was just going, and that's it. We're now stopped.
Yeah. It's fascinating, when a well-oiled machine like that has to come to a halt. But look, I just think, sometimes we can get greater than ourselves, can't we? And this was one of the ways of telling us to just stop and just reassess. And I also think, one of the good things about it all stopping down is that it showed us new ways of working. People have learnt that they can do what they do from home. They don't have to spend millions of pounds sort of traveling up and down the country to attend auditions, if you like. For example, we can do auditions via Zoom. We can have this conversation. Podcasts and all this kind of live conversation can still happen. And that for me was really interesting, because before EastEnders, you would have to go down, because I used to live up in Huddersfield, and I'd have to pay like 90 odd quid to come down to do an audition in London. And that would only last 5 seconds, and then you wouldn't be seen again. And you're like, well, what's the point of it? Why would, and and those were for smaller roles as well, for like 2-bit lines. And you just kind of go, that's not really fair. But now we know that we can do this. So I think it's as much as it closed things down, it also opened new ways up in order to work. I don't know. What do you think about that, Stephen?
Well, I think I don't think there'll be a massive amount of going back to how it used to be in terms of auditioning, for example, but for screen work primarily. I think that self-tapes that were beginning to happen more and more, as you know, before the pandemic, I really think those are going to explode now in terms of auditioning. And
just explain that to us, Stephen. Self-tapes.
Basically, you would find a reader. You would send the scene that you audition for. Find a reader who would be reading off camera, and you would be taping the audition, and then sending that taped audition to the casting director. Self-taping audition, as opposed to meeting face to face. And as I say, I think self-taping was becoming more and more popular before this all kicked off. But I think even now, I'd be surprised if there's a going back. I think that's going to be the norm now. I really do.
Yeah, I think that's it seems the very fact that we're doing this now. I mean, for both of you chatting on my show, we on the radio, we started using technology like this, didn't we, to record interviews and stuff, and that has massively changed so much. And I think you're right. I think that, Bal, you said about those train journeys. When you actually think pre-COVID, it seems bonkers that we are getting on public transport, getting cars to places, if that's the case, to be able to go to somewhere that is literally just a couple of moments, just so you can physically be in the same room. Now, is the argument that a producer or a director, guys, needs to have that they have to have that, they need to see you up close like that, or something like this, is that good enough?
Look, I think for theatre it's different, because there's a live element to it. I don't know, but I just think, when you're, because it's not just about seeing what the person's like, is it, on screen? It's also about finding out how you connect with them, how you gel with them, and whether you like their work ethic and all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes those conversations happen off screen, don't they? Like the interview bit. And so maybe that's important, because also you want to be able to like see the person and know that they're real, and there is a sense of feeling, touching, smelling, all that kind of stuff. But if it's just for something that's like a little scene, in a massive production, like, really, do we really need? And it's hard enough as it is. Actors struggle a lot financially. Do we really need to push that on somebody and make them sometimes sacrifice, kind of buying a nice dress to go out and save money to go down for an audition? Do you know what I mean? It is sometimes that difference.
It's all those things.
Because that, I mean, sometimes it's not just the journey and the time taken to take the journey and to go to the audition. It's actually the organisation that gets you onto the train in the first place. The things you have to cancel, the things you have to change. If there's childcare, for example, all sorts of things, and doing that for something that's relatively not very big in terms of the scene, and you think, I would hope that won't happen again. I really do. But there is for a more involved role, there is I think I would personally miss that sense of being in the room if it really does start to completely disappear, because there's something, I don't know, it's some unspoken chemistry that can happen sometimes. Where that you'll be able to collaborate with that person. With you.
I mean, I miss it. I miss you guys are both guests who come into a radio studio with me, and I miss that physical. That you're opposite, but this is nice too in our little boxes. So that's all good. Just on that note about when we talked a little bit there about how the modern technology has helped in a way to keep connected. Let's just take a couple of messages coming into us. This one then from Modern Music Dan. So have you discovered a new way of being creative that you plan to continue when life resumes? I mean, it taps into a bit of the self-taping stuff, I guess, there, but anything else that has kind of really worked for you both, that, you've realized that actually I can be creative in this way now. I don't need to do it in a different way. Bal?
I think all of this is really new for me, kind of meeting people online in that way. And I would like to be, because I think it just opens it out a bit more. And I think you see lots of, call outs for castings and things via Twitter, or let's say, I mean, I've come off Facebook now, but, or Facebook or emails and things like that. And I think the accessibility of that has opened up and it's really funny, isn't it? Because on the one hand, everything's shut down, and then there was loads of other stuff that I was doing. I did something for Tamasha Theatre, which was a love poem called NHS Love, and it was just sort of an online directory for our key workers to be able to sort of go on and tap in when they were having a sort of down moment, or feeling like they couldn't continue. There was this opportunity for them to just go and listen to one of their favorite poems. So I did that. I did lots of chats with yourself, and I think this kind of way of working is lovely. And on podcasts that, like, this is a kind of podcast, isn't it? That was really nice for me. And I looked at blogging, and I've been reading lots of people's blogs, and potentially that might be something I might take up in the future, just kind of blog my journey.
Well, I think we've just lost you.
But it would be to pop down and just see how it all, works, really.
That was brilliant, Bal. That was I don't know if Stephen, you saw the same as I saw and everyone else saw, but you said it was almost like you were about to tell us what the plot of this blog was, and then you kind of went into this cyberspace world, and we were sitting there going, And
we were like this.
Well, there you go.
but that's brilliant, isn't it? Just on the point about technology, it can never replace everything. It's great, but it can't replace everything. But you're right, that kind of experience of, so I did this really weird thing. Now, most people think that, well, I must have done more radio and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, yeah, it's fair to say I've done a few little other bits that I wasn't expecting. But I found myself making furniture out of old pallets. That's what I spent lockdown doing.
Oh, amazing.
I've never done that in my life. I'm not even a DIY person, and yet that's something. And I think that's been a really interesting thing for people, that it has, you know, absolutely done a bit of a change for some people, hasn't it? You know, it's given people an area that they weren't expecting, you know.
People have become gardeners and bakers. I mean, that's creative.
Have you been creative, extra creative, Stephen Elder?
Well, you know, I couldn't resist doing a little bit of DIY around the house, and I've stopped now because I've started doing quite a bit of damage. You know, quite a bit of damage. You know? There are no straight lines in nature. That's my argument. There are no straight lines.
Absolutely,
in nature.
I couldn't agree more. You know, it's the way it was supposed to look.
Exactly.
You know, absolutely right.
I suppose I've gone back to writing a little bit, which I'll try and sustain as much as I can now. I think for a while, and I don't have any experience of this, but it struck me that I should probably look at this. I think for a while, the only actors that were working were voiceover actors through this, that had their own home studio. Yeah, so I think that's something that we all should look at, maybe.
There we go.
You know?
Dom, any tips?
Yeah,
guys, you know you've got that natural gift. Just use it in the best way you can.
Well, thank you very much. But back to voiceover.
No, I think
I look like I'm flying a plane, don't I? I look like I'm in a cockpit of a plane.
You do. I quite like it. No, hold on. Let's see if we're going to do this. Let's give you the full act.
Is that it? Do you buy it? Is that it? Is that truthful?
A pilot was played by Stephen Elder. That's very good.
That
no,
was
I like
a good
that.
voiceover.
Thank you, and that was very good. The experience for people is very varied, and that's what has been amazing during lockdown, that I've certainly heard from so many in the arts who have talked about that creativity. If you're just joining us, by the way, on this live stream, we're about halfway in. This is a love letter for the arts coming to you on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. And thank you so much for all those people who not only watch this live, but also then join in the conversation afterwards. And fantastic, on last week's episode, we had a record number of people who watched after the broadcast as well. So I realize for a lot of people, this is all about catch up, and you're watching this on catch up on any of those streams. You can still leave your comment, and it's something that can be referred to. By the way, if you want to send those messages, whatever you're watching us on those 3 different streaming services, just simply leave your message underneath in the comments. If you've got a question for Balvinder Sopal, or if you've got a question for Stephen Elder, 2 of our nation's finest actors, if I don't mind saying myself, and I'd love you to ask them a question, because I know they're both really up for that. But let's get into what it's like then to go onto the set. What is it like to be actually there, where you are an actor who has been in lockdown, and then suddenly you get that phone call to say, we are going back onto the set, and all of your normal professional side is probably going, great, fantastic, want to do it, but your personal side is going, okay, how's that going to work? What am I going to do? How does that work? I don't know. So you then get that phone call, you talk through it and all the rest. Let's hear some individual stories then from Bal and Steve this afternoon. I'm going to start with you, Stephen, talking about a film you've literally just come off the set of, which is Miss Willoughby and the Haunted Bookshop.
That's it.
This is a film that stars you alongside Kelsey Grammer, Tara Fitzgerald, and the lovely Caroline Quintin. going on that set, you've literally in the last week or so, I think, you've come off set and you've been in York filming. So can you give us an idea of what it was like to be on that film set?
It's joyous to be back working again, and I think everyone felt that. It was strange because of the quite strict COVID safety guidelines, but just wonderful, and everyone was so committed and so eager and so happy to be working again that we dealt with those guidelines. It was surreal at first. I think the primary thing we had, in addition to things like regular temperature checking on set every day for everyone involved, the crew were constantly in PPE, masked, and sometimes they were working in quite hot conditions. The hot spell we had a few weeks ago, it was tough for them. But the primary thing we had was regular COVID testing. So we were tested every 3 days, really, and got very quick results on both sides of the camera, both the cast and the production team, the crew. So yeah, it was strange, but at first, as I say, but actually remarkably quickly we adapted, and I think the sort of fuel for that was just the joy of being back at it.
That must have been really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still in shock that a gig came along as we were coming out of all this. I'm very, very, very lucky boy, really. But yeah, we stuck with it, and it was great. It was just very different. I'd love it to go back to how it was one day. But as far as I know, fingers crossed, everyone was safe on it. And we finished shooting now. And yeah, it was great. Difficult, strange, but great.
Was there a different experience, though, coming between the UK actors and like Kelsey Grammer flying in? What was it like for him? Did you get that sense from him about what he felt about it all?
We didn't really have much time to talk about that. We just had to get on with it because it was only a three week shoot. But he had to quarantine, I believe. I believe all actors coming in from other shores have to quarantine. Yeah, I mean, I just think to a person, everyone was committed to making these protocols work, including Kelsey and everyone involved.
Do you think that's going to be effectively what's going to happen from now on when you go onto a film set? This is in for the long haul. This isn't just a moment.
I suspect it might be until, hopefully, a vaccine is found. I suspect so. I think that the British Film Council, as far as I know, Bal might know more about this than I do, but they've issued a set of guidelines, for COVID safety guidelines.
Yeah.
As a set of foundation, but I think a lot of production companies are using those as a basis, and then finding their own ways in addition to that to make it work. So there's a bit of that's the foundation, but there's also a bit of extra levels of safety guidelines being placed from production to production and company to company.
And that film set experience, I mean, was it reduced in terms of the number of crew who were there? I mean, how were I mean, so it's one thing being behind the scenes or being in front of the camera, but what about the crew themselves? Because that must be really weird. They're usually quite close to each other. There's, it's quite tight, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, all of those guys were constantly masked, and of course the social distancing was in place amongst the crew. To do the work as a cast, we couldn't socially distance, but we had the testing, and we were all in a what do they call them, a COVID bubble together, and we were all very, very careful between shooting. But the crew size was smaller, which does concern me in terms of just people's employment on productions. I mean, I hope and can't wait for it to go back to as it was, that we can get going without all this stuff. But the heartening thing is, it is possible. It is possible to make this product in this way.
Bal, being part of the nation's, and for any Corrie fans, one of the nation's biggest soaps. Not sure which is which in front. I work for that organisation that you're in, so maybe I should say, Anyway, EastEnders, huge for the nation. It disappeared off our screens. There were obviously the behind-the-scenes stuff of people being interviewed as actors to keep people going, but ultimately it stopped transmission in its history. Massive thing, and then you go back onto the set behind the scenes a number of weeks ago. You go back on and you start filming again, ready for it all to come back on the 7th of September at 8:05 p.m. For EastEnders to return. That experience for you then, Suki Panesar is back on the square.
Yes, allegedly. No, yeah, yes, it was scary, you know, because there are measures in place. Of course, you know, the sort of one-way system was put in place, and also we would have to be temperature checked upon arrival, and that's always my sort of sticking thing, because I'm like, what if it says access denied, and you can't go in, and then you've got to like go and get checked out by the doctor. But so far, touch wood, everything's been all right. So once access is granted, you know you sort of follow the route into the building, and they've done a one-way system because the corridors are very narrow. So usually we would be sort of, you know, walking past shouting at each other or whatever. Now you've got to follow the one-way system. And there are hand sanitizers at every entry point as well, which is great. And yeah, and I was very nervous because not only do you have to sort of, because the character was still very new, and I mean, I'm getting sort of to the bones of her now, but still there's a lot to uncover. So, you know, sort of learning a new character and then also a new way of working just put the fear of God in me, really, because I was like, well, if I get it wrong, that means everything's messed up and it's going to put everyone behind a bit more. And, you know, there's going to be high tensions and all that kind of stuff. But actually, because we'd slowed everything right down, the episodes have gone down to 20 minutes. And, you know, certain scenes would take, you know, if a scene took an hour to do, they sort of allowed 2 or 3 hours for it, which is brilliant. They reduced the number of people involved in the scenes as well, which kind of meant that they could really focus on getting as good a performance as was possible, given the measures of the 2-meter distancing and all that kind of stuff. We had COVID colonels who would be walking around with a 2-meter stick to make sure that actors and crew members didn't get too close, because obviously
that's so BBC.
You need to adhere to the rules. Oh, it's so funny. It was so funny. Like, and it was one of them like, so they were like, right, you're too close, or whatever. And also, again, like Stephen said, you know, they reduced the number of crew as well, so that we could get, you know, so that we could get the scenes. And if we did need more cast, then there was less crew, you know, all that kind of stuff. And what I was really, really warmed by was the spirit of everybody to just jump on board and just go, we've got to do this. It's for the greater good, you know. It's not about ego, it's not about getting my scene done, or everybody just jumped in and made it work. You know, we were all very keen for it to work. So
Laura in Maidstone with this question, so I have no idea how the film TV industry works. Were you able to stand in a regular proximity to other actors to do scenes, or did you need to maintain social distancing and offset it with camera trickery? Bal?
Yes, there was a lot of camera trickery. So like I said, so the scenes were sort of constructed so there were only 2 or 3 people in the scene. I think the BBC bosses were very keen to make sure that it was a 3D, you know, 3-dimensional kind of output, and it wasn't just 2 people talking, you know, that we were able to have more than 2 people speaking. So when there were 3 people, it was about angles and making sure that there was distance. But of course, you know, the whole point of humanity is the intimacy and the kind of connection that we have with each other. And they came up with an absolutely genius idea to get the intimate scenes, the kissing scenes, perspex glass.
Magic.
Right. This is like one of the most phenomenal things.
unbelievable. I mean, I wish I could show you. I've got like, I won't, but like basically you could have this clear perspex glass, which would allow the actor to get as close as was possible on both sides. So so like,
that's amazing.
That kind of thing. It was brilliant.
I'm just going to hold on, guys. I'm just going to pull myself out of this for a second. Back in again, because I'm just thinking that.
Where's it gone? Have I got to do that?
Where's he gone? Have we driven him away?
I was just thinking.
Have we driven you away?
I was giving you the moment to do the kissing scene.
Oh, I see. Oh, right. Yes. Well, there you go.
You're two actors. I thought.
Look, Dom.
All right. Well, that's it. Right. Sorry, Stephen.
That's hard.
Anyway,
that's really hard. Oh my word.
Yes, it is. And what they'll do, and hopefully you won't be able to see the perspex screen, when it
That's
comes
brilliant.
to popping the show on, like CGI'd it or whatever in post-production. And it just, it meant that you could have those close, intimate chats and not have to shout across and all that kind of stuff. It was just genius. I mean, we were shown all of it before we did it. So we were sort of called in for an induction. We were all sat in the Vic in social, 2 meters apart. And we just saw the sort of these ideas that they had all sort of sat down and sketched out and went, this is how we're going to do it. We were just like, really? But they made it work. I mean, it's ambitious, but BBC bosses and John Sen have absolutely cracked it.
I just had this mental image of everyone sitting there practicing with the perspex screen in the Vic.
Oh, that's so funny. But I mean,
did you have that, Stephen? Though on Miss Willoughby, I mean, there must have been some romantic scenes. I mean, how did they cope?
They might have been. I'm not going to give anything away.
It's funny, isn't it? With films, Stephen has to be very guarded by what he says about the movie. They're very expensive, those lawyers in LA, and we're just saying it all, Bal, aren't we? We're just saying everything. It's fine.
No, they put a little video out yesterday. When I sort of said, look, what can we speak about? Because obviously we have to get everything clear, don't we? But this was one of the things that is there. I mean, it sort of ruins the magic, but it doesn't either, because you go, I can't literally believe that that's how it actually happened. I'm still when we use it, and we use it very rarely because it's a lot of setup. It takes a long time. And so, but it just blew my mind. And I was just like, I can't believe it. Yeah.
So is it a very thin piece of material then? Is it very thin, or is it not?
No, I think it's quite thick. There is a certain thickness to it.
Right.
And it's really heavy as well, because they've got it's on wheels. So, and also with the perspex glass, you have to have a 2 meter square around it as well.
Right.
So, so there can be no in your vicinity. It's just you and the other actor on the other side. So it's just so clever. And I'm just in awe of how they've managed to, to make it work.
It's that kind of creativity that's going to get us out of this, I think.
Yeah. I mean, pioneers in this. I don't think anybody else has used it. I mean, I know that the other soaps haven't.
1-0.
There you go, Bal. Question for you, back from Laura.
What does it say? You're gonna have to read.
Do you feel that by using those new techniques with the perspex glass and any other tricks you might have used, that you develop new acting skills to complement it?
Well, it's all about adaptability, isn't it? Can you imagine kissing a perspex glass? Hilarious.
I'll let you know later. I'll check it out.
Too much info.
We are, as actors, it's our job to adapt to anything that's thrown to us, isn't it? So we just go with the flow, and we'll see. I hope we don't have to use it for too long, but who knows? I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows
absolutely. Hey, if you just joined us on our live stream this afternoon here on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, you are watching a love letter for the arts. We're live on those platforms, and we've got these two incredible actors, Stephen Elder, Balvinder Sopal, with us. Stephen lives in Tunbridge, Balvinder lives in Gillingham. They are part of our county of Kent, and that's why this live stream is so good for me to be able to connect with these artists. And actually, what's been great is seeing all your comments that come in, especially as we have continued. This is our fourth episode, by the way, and we're going to continue doing it. I've got a number of guests lined up who want to be part of this, and it started off as a result of just hearing voices from the arts on Twitter and Facebook and thinking, do you know what, if we could just bring people together to just have a conversation, because that's what it's all about. I'm really up for doing this because it's about people coming together and having a chat. If I'm a bit distracted, by the way, hold on one second. This will get the ratings in.
Hello.
This will get the ratings in.
Hello, you. Oh my God.
Beautiful.
There we go. Right, down you go. I should have set him up with his own individual one. Okay, we'll go out in a minute. We've got a bit of time. Right. So next up then with us here on A Love Letter for the Arts is to think about, I guess, what this means in terms of the future and what's happening next. What do you think the arts might look like in the future, Stephen? How we might see, and this doesn't necessarily mean just film and television, but just all of the arts. There's been this incredible explosion of outpouring, I think, of love for the arts. But as I say in every one of these episodes, there has been this almost sense that people have seen the arts as a luxury item in life and not actually something that grabs people together during the tough times, because I think the arts has done that and proved its way to doing that, but it's brought people together.
Well, it's interesting that we're talking about how creativity is going to help us get out of this and help us function, at least until a vaccine is hopefully found, fingers crossed. And so I mean, the arts, the nurturing of arts is about the nurturing of creativity, and and creativity is creativity. The creativity that creates a great piece of sculpture or a great painting or writing is the same creativity that creates the kind of design that we need and that will help us in the health service and in the scientific world and in the design world. So creativity is creativity, and it's through arts that we can nurture that,
Dan makes a point there that comes in on what you've just said. Do you think people will value? You're like me, Stephen. We both have to get our glasses on to read it.
I'm 97.
Do you think people will value the arts more after lockdown for the comfort it has offered us?
I can only hope so. I hope so. I know that a lot of people have turned to recorded arts, TV and music during the lockdown in order to create an escape and a place to experience the world imaginatively. So I hope it will, but I hope that the sense of creativity, as I say, that surrounds the arts, will be respected, because it's going to be creativity that gets us out of this,
Val, people may know you, especially those who are watching you on the television, your career across television in lots of different series, but also all the work you've done in theatre, which I know is so close to your heart. People may now see you as Suki Panesar. I know what happens when you go into something like EastEnders, that they see you as this big, amazing character, which is wonderful. But you also, as I know, here in Kent, behind the scenes, you're a champion for the arts. You really support your local centre, like the Sunlight Centre in Gillingham. You know, you're very much a part of what's going on in your community, and for a number of years, as supportive as Stephen has been as well for the radio programme that I do, you have created material for the show as a arts correspondent for us. You know, and that's been, you know, juggling that with all the other stuff you do. And that point about what the arts might look like in the future, you see these people in your own community in Gillingham who are tirelessly campaigning to keep the arts alive. What do you think the future might look like?
Perspex screen. I don't know. You know, it's an interesting question about the value of arts because it. Oh, I don't know. It's really weird. When I started, I felt really weird about making money from creating art. Because for me, it was about connecting with people. It was about self-expression. It was about learning about people, learning about myself. It was about humanity. And I think it still is that. But because it's that, I think people don't value it enough. Because, you know, because it's just being creative. But like Stephen says, you know, it's creativity it's almost a way of healing. I think I'm going to sound really like I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's a healing. And I think we have to, you know, when there are all these like self-development courses and, you know, kind of life coaches and all that kind of stuff, art is one of those strands of understanding the human complexities. And I think we have to put money and value into that and develop as people, as creators, as people who can imagine worlds that we want to live in. And if we want to invest in that, then there is a future. And I just hope that people understand that we need this. We need to be able to create a better world to live in, and that comes from creativity and art and connecting with each other. You know, the people in power at the moment don't necessarily view it as important, and I think there's lots of things that are dying. But maybe, you know, art goes underground because you can't kill it, can you? You can't.
No.
What's the Maya Angelou quote? What is it? You can't use it with the more you have it, you know. And I think people will just go underground with their art. People will just make connections and all sorts of things. You know, you can't stop people from expressing and wanting to learn about each other. So I'm hoping you can't stop it. I don't know if that made any sense.
It did make sense, yeah.
It won't be stopped. It won't be stopped. My hope for the future is that society that we live in a society whose culture values it and continues to value it, because I think that all art runs on empathy, and all art runs on empathy and connection with what it is to be human, really, and what it is to walk in someone else's shoes, and what it is to express something which is sometimes, certainly in terms of music, for example, possibly beyond words, feelings that are beyond words. And all of that is about connecting with each other. And we live in, it seems to me anyway, we live in an extraordinarily polarized time. Social media seems to, rather than pull us together, seems to be dividing us, certainly in the last few years. And I just think we really need it. And I hope it's respected from the upper echelons of society. I hope it's respected. It will always survive. It will survive this. I mean, it survived the Great Flu epidemic and the Great Plague. It will survive this. But what worries me and what I hope for at the same time is that it will be respected culturally and politically as well.
Thank you for.
You know, one of the things.
We just lots of people agreeing with what you just said there. By the way, yeah.
Just make a quick comment. During lockdown, a lot of people went out for walks, and lots of people took their cameras with them to capture the beauty of nature and sunsets and all of that. That's art. You know, that's our value. That's where we live. That's the world that we create. So you know, when you look at it like that, I mean, it's invaluable, isn't it? You can't put a value on it. You know, so
everything that has happened. No, but everything that's happened. I mean, I think we spend a lot of time. You know, we don't stop enough, do we? And what I think this has created, this whole period, you know, with all the tragedy that's happened for people, and all the fact that people, you know, watching this now, you know, there'll be some people who haven't got a job right now and don't know what's going to happen around the corner, and the one thing that, and it sounds sometimes like it's almost like saying, but at least you've got the arts. All I'd say is that all those facets, exactly what you were saying there, Bal, all those elements, all those moments of being able to just have a pause, you know, whether it's having a lovely walk and seeing how beautiful it is with nature and the way the tree has formed for this part of the season and all those kind of things. And sometimes people think you sound all very wacky when you talk like that. The reality is we don't do that enough, and maybe that helps us to get our minds into a place to be able to go, right, I've got a massive week ahead. How am I going to deal with it? I deal with it because I get some space. And what the arts does is at weekends and evenings, and it gives people a chance to go into another portal, into another world, whether they're going into a film like Miss Willoughby in the future, or whether they're going onto the square and meeting these families who have all got their issues going on. It gives a moment for people to be able to connect. And that's what the arts do, because ultimately they're being made and created by the very same people who are living in the community. They may become more famous, they may become more well known, but the reality is they're still about human beings at its heart. And that's, I think, the incredible thing about it all. I just want to say thank you so much to all those who have been leaving their comments as well. We got round to a number of them during our live conversation. Of course, they'll be up there on Facebook and on Twitter and YouTube for you to continue reading. And I know that an awful lot of people who are just tuning into this now in the last few moments of our conversation together, don't worry, you can watch this again as soon as this live feed is over. It will be there on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube for you to watch. And if you're just tuning in now and this is a couple of days later or even a year later, my beard's still the same size. I keep it this trim. Stephen doesn't have a beard anymore. He's lost his beard. That's gone.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, and Bal never had a beard, so that's all good.
No, I had the tash, but I waxed it.
Guys, really lovely. Thank you so much for being with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I just want almost to, and no pressure here, but I ask this of every single guest who's on the show with us, to just give us, you know, in 30 seconds or less, a real feeling of what the arts mean to you from that very first time when you knew that you sort of started to do it, whether it's acting or anything else in your life. And we'll end with this. But for all those who have been joining us, thank you so much for being with us. And look out for the special moments at the end of this broadcast as well. Do stay with us for that. It's something that all three of us wanted to make sure we recognise today on this programme. Stephen Elder, actor from Tunbridge, your love letter for the arts.
Well, I think I've talked about the importance and the empathy of art and the importance of creativity socially, and so I'm from a personal point of view. It's a love letter. My love letter to the arts is it allowed a kid from Worksop to growing up in a small northern town to explore imaginatively what it might be like to live other lives. And oddly enough, and I don't understand the psychology of it, but oddly enough, to through doing that, I feel more comfortable in my own skin, and grow, I hope, as a person through exploring those different facets of the world and of life. And I think that art can do that for everyone. Absolutely everyone, whether it's dramatic art or writing or painting, sculpture, music, dance. It can broaden the spectrum of our minds and help us to feel more at one with ourselves, I think.
Bal?
I just want to say thank you to the arts for being my best mate. For being somebody that I have been able to turn to when things weren't looking right, and a space that has allowed me to learn about me, and everybody else, and whether that's through reading poetry, Rumi, or listening to Guns N' Roses at uni, or sort of being able to write my own feelings down, for just being that support, and allowing me to understand that I have a place in this world, like we all do, and for just supporting me in every kind of outpouring of self-expression. And I think it's accessible for everybody, and everybody can just tap into it, whichever way you want to. Marilyn keeps me going. I love looking at Marilyn. I sometimes want to be like, but it's nice to be able to imagine that I could be one day. So yeah, just thank you for the space to just be and explore, and for just lifting me up and inspiring me, and galvanizing me to want to make a difference in the world. And I know we're going through a difficult time right now, but we'll get there, and we will be able to inspire and galvanize, and well, we continue to, don't we? So yeah, just thanks for being my best mate.
Val, Stephen, thank you so much for being with us on a love letter for the arts. It's been great. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and it will continue in a few weeks' time when I'll be returning for a love letter for the arts, which will be our 5th edition that we've been doing. But from all of us here on this live stream this afternoon, keep your messages coming in and keep the conversation about the arts going, because every time we watch a TV program or a film, or we listen to the radio, or we download a podcast, or we watch a play, or we read a book, or we watch some dance, or we experience someone's craft, we are connecting with human beings. And sometimes those human beings have an amazing way of connecting with us.